The House That Breathed. Chapter 1. The Dare. It started with a dare, the kind that doesn't feel like a choice once it's spoken aloud. "You won't last the night in there," Caleb had said, his voice carrying easily over the bonfire crackle. He grinned in that way that dared you to prove him wrong, his marshmallow blackened and forgotten at the end of his stick. The others leaned closer to the flames, shadows flickering across their faces. They'd all heard the same stories growing up, how the old Kessler house was alive, how people who spent a night there woke different, quieter, hollow-eyed, as though some part of them had been drawn into the walls. "You mean the house that breathes," Marcy snorted, though she wrapped her blanket tighter around her shoulders. "Come on, that's just what bored kids say when they hear a draft under the floorboards." "Drafts don't whisper," Caleb replied. His eyes shifted to you, then lingered, waiting. The group followed his gaze. You felt their attention like heat against your skin, and suddenly every excuse you might have made dried up in your throat. You weren't the bravest among them, but neither were you the sort who backed down when challenged. "You're saying I couldn't do it?" you asked. "I'm saying nobody has." Caleb's grin widened. "Not all the way through the night, not alone. If you can, you get bragging rights forever." The fire popped. Somewhere in the dark field beyond, a cricket fell silent. Marcy shook her head. "It's a stupid dare. That place is falling apart. You'll break a leg on rotten stairs before anything spooky gets you." "Then what's there to be scared of?" Caleb countered. Their laughter rose and fell around you, a tide of teasing voices. But beneath it, you felt the current of something heavier, the unspoken weight of generations of rumors. People swore the Kessler place moved at night, its walls swelling like lungs, its halls humming with voices too low to catch. No one remembered the last person who lived there. Some claimed the house itself had swallowed them whole. You should have laughed it off. Instead, you heard yourself say, "Fine, I'll do it." The group erupted in cheers and jeers. Caleb clapped you on the back hard enough to sting. "That's the spirit. We'll drop you off tomorrow evening. Just you, the house, and however many ghosts live in the wallpaper." Marcy frowned, her eyes catching yours across the firelight. "Don't," she mouthed silently, the word lost under the laughter. Her expression wasn't mocking, but afraid. The rest of the night passed in fragments, stories told too loudly, flames burning low, the sharp taste of smoke in your throat. But beneath it all, the decision lodged in your chest like a stone. When the fire burned to embers and the others drifted home, you found yourself staring out toward the dark rise of the hill where the Kessler house sat. Its silhouette was just visible against the stars, windows blank and waiting. You told yourself you didn't believe the stories, but as the last ember hissed out, you thought you heard something, distant, carried on the still air. A long, slow inhale. The sound of something waiting for you to arrive. The first night. The house loomed larger up close, its roofline jagged against the fading light like broken teeth. The drive up had been quiet. Caleb and Marcy dropped you at the gate just before dusk, their car idling a moment too long before Caleb muttered, "See you in the morning, if you make it." He laughed, but it sounded thinner than usual. Marcy didn't laugh. She didn't even look at you as the car pulled away. The iron gate squealed when you pushed it open. Beyond it, the path was little more than gravel choked with weeds, leading to a porch sagging under its own weight. The front door tilted slightly in its frame, paint stripped down to bare wood. You hesitated at the bottom step, your bag heavy on your shoulder. "Just wood," you whispered to yourself. "Just a house." The floorboards groaned when you stepped inside. The air was colder than you expected, thick with dust and the faint scent of mildew. You flicked on your flashlight, its narrow beam cutting through the gloom. The wallpaper was peeling in long strips, curling down like old parchment. A grandfather clock stood in the hallway, its glass shattered, its hands frozen at 3:17. You set your bag down in a small room off the main hall. The bed was narrow, frame rusted, mattress sagging like it had been waiting centuries for weight to return. You didn't sit on it yet. Instead, you wandered. The house seemed endless inside. Rooms opened into rooms, doorways yawning into dark spaces where your flashlight barely reached. You passed through a dining room where the table was still set, plates rimmed with dust, silverware tarnished green. In the parlor, a piano sat with its lid up, keys yellowed and cracked, though the sheet music on its stand hadn't crumbled completely. Everywhere there was silence. No birds outside, no insects buzzing. Just silence, until you began to notice it, a faint rhythm under the quiet. At first, you thought it was your own heartbeat, your own breath echoing too loudly in your ears. But as you stood still in the hallway, you realized it was the house. The wooden beams seemed to strain upward, expanding with a deep inhale. The walls creaked, sagging slightly, releasing with a long exhale. You stepped closer to the wall, laying your palm against the faded wallpaper. The surface was cool and faintly trembling, as though something vast stirred inside. A draft, you told yourself, just a draft. But when you pressed your ear to the wall, the sound shifted. Beneath the creak of timber came a murmur, a hushed cadence, like voices in another room. You couldn't make out the words. You weren't sure you wanted to. The flashlight flickered once, twice, then steadied. You pulled away from the wall and forced yourself back into the small room. The bed groaned when you finally lowered yourself onto it, dust rising in a faint cloud. You left the flashlight burning beside you, its beam aimed at the ceiling. Shadows gathered in the corners, pulsing faintly with the rhythm of the house's breath. You pulled the blanket tight and shut your eyes. For a time, you thought you might actually sleep. Then, the mattress shifted. Slowly, gradually, as though someone had lain down beside you. You froze, every muscle locked. You didn't dare open your eyes. You didn't dare breathe. The air at your cheek stirred, cold and damp. A whisper slid against your skin, so close it felt born from the pillow itself. It said, your name. Your eyes snapped open to the dark ceiling, the flashlight beam now trembling as though gripped by unseen hands. And from the wall came another long inhale. The house was not empty. Chapter 3. Settling in. Morning came gray and reluctant, light squeezing through the warped shutters in thin, crooked stripes. You hadn't truly slept. Your eyes had shut, yes, but every sound, the sigh of the beams, the shift of the mattress, the occasional whisper brushing against your name, pulled you back from the edge of rest. When you finally sat up, the bed groaned again, this time under only your weight. The other dip in the mattress had vanished. Dust clung to your clothes. You stretched, rubbing your eyes, and muttered, "Just nerves, just the house settling." The words sounded too small in the empty room. You decided to explore in daylight, telling yourself it would prove there was nothing here. With the flashlight clipped to your belt, you stepped into the hallway. The silence pressed in from all sides. No birdsong outside, no hum of insects. The house seemed to exist in a pocket cut off from the rest of the world. The dining room looked worse in the light. The table was coated in a thick film of dust, but the plates and utensils were still neatly arranged, as though a family had once been called to dinner and simply never arrived. You touched the rim of a plate. It shifted slightly under your finger, leaving a faint ring in the dust. In the parlor, the piano caught your attention again. The sheet music on the stand was yellowed, the notes still legible. Nocturne in E minor. You pressed a single key. The sound that rose wasn't quite right, too sharp, too hollow, but it was sound, and in the silence of the house it seemed deafening. The floor above your head answered with a creak. You froze, hand hovering over the keys. The creak came again. 2 slow steps. Then nothing. Wood expanding, you whispered to yourself, though the words trembled. The kitchen was worse. Rust ate through the sink basin, and the stove was choked with ashes long cold. A kettle sat on one of the burners, blackened and cracked. You bent to look closer and saw something scratched into the enamel of the stovetop, faint but deliberate. Leave before it learns you. The letters trailed off at the end, as if whoever carved them had been dragged away mid-stroke. You stumbled back, nearly tripping over the doorframe. Your flashlight beam wavered over the walls, revealing nothing but more peeling wallpaper, water stains like spreading bruises. In the pantry, you found jars of preserves so old the contents had turned black, lids rusted shut. A child's shoe sat on the shelf beside them, too small, too clean compared to everything else, as though it had been placed there recently. The upstairs hallway was worse than you expected, long, narrow, lined with doors. The carpet runner had rotted to threads, but when you stepped onto it, you swore it gave slightly, like flesh instead of fabric. You forced yourself down the corridor, opening each door. A bedroom with wallpaper patterned in faded stars. A sewing room with the machine still threaded, needle halfway through a scrap of fabric. A bathroom where the mirror was cracked into a spiderweb pattern, yet in the shards, your reflection seemed delayed. You lifted your hand, and in one sliver of glass, your reflection's hand lifted a moment later. By the time you returned downstairs, your chest felt tight, as though you had been holding your breath for hours. The grandfather clock in the hallway stood silent, its hands still locked at 3:17. But as you passed it, you heard a faint ticking. Not steady, not rhythmic, just once, a hollow tick, then silence. You backed into your small room and closed the door. Your phone, when you pulled it out, showed no signal, not even a flicker of a bar. You tapped out a message to Marcy anyway, thumbs trembling. Still alive, just a house, right? The message sat unsent, and from somewhere deep in the walls, the house exhaled, slow and heavy, as though sighing at your denial.
The second night. By evening, the house felt heavier, not just in its silence, but in the way it seemed to lean inward, its very walls sagging as though listening. You had spent the day exploring, keeping your fear buried beneath a thin layer of logic, drafts, rot, old foundations. But the scratches on the stove, the reflection in the bathroom mirror, the phantom steps above, those lingered, circling your thoughts like crows. The sun dipped behind the trees, and with it, your courage. Shadows stretched across the hallways like dark water flooding the floors. You retreated to your small room, flashlight clutched in your hand, your bag pressed against the bed as if proximity alone could keep you safe. Your phone still showed no signal. The message to Marcy still hadn't sent. You tried again, lifting the phone, walking slowly around the room, near the window, near the bed. Still nothing. At one point, the screen flickered, not the kind of flicker that comes from low battery, but as though someone's fingers had brushed the inside of the glass. For a moment, a single bar appeared. You typed fast. Come back, not a joke, feels wrong. But before you hit send, the bar vanished. Dead air again. Darkness gathered quickly. The flashlight beam cut a small, weak circle, every corner beyond it swelling with shadow. You laid down, but sleep did not come easily. Your ears strained at every creak, every sigh of the boards. And then, sometime past midnight, it began again. The mattress shifted. Slowly, gradually, a weight pressing down at the far side, making the springs groan as though another body had eased into place beside you. You turned sharply, flashlight in hand, but the beam struck only dust and the curve of the pillow. No one. You swallowed hard. It's just... Before you could finish, breath stirred against your ear. Cold, wet, impossibly close. A whisper followed, the same voice you had heard through the walls the night before, but clearer now. "Don't worry, I'll keep breathing for you." You jolted upright, the flashlight quivering in your hand. The room was empty, but the air pulsed. The shadows along the wall shifted as though carried on an invisible tide, rising with a slow inhale, sinking with an exhale. "No," you said aloud, though your voice broke. "No, it's just a house." The reply came instantly, low and soft, from everywhere at once. Not just a house, home. The walls swelled outward, wood groaning like ribs strained to their limit. The floor beneath you trembled faintly, like something vast was stirring underneath. You stumbled back, pressing against the door. The knob was cold under your hand, but when you tried to turn it, it refused. Locked. You hadn't locked it. The whisper rose again, curling through the room, threading into your ears. "I've been here all along, before you, before them. I know your breath. I know your name." "Shut up," you shouted, though your voice cracked in the silence. The shadows recoiled slightly, as though savoring the panic in your words. Then they pulsed again, keeping rhythm with your heaving breaths. Inhale, exhale, until you realized the house wasn't just breathing anymore. It was breathing with you. Every rise of your chest was echoed in the groan of the beams, every gasp matched by the walls expanding. Your lungs no longer felt like your own. They felt tethered, bound to something larger. And when you tried to hold your breath, the house inhaled for you, stretching, creaking, sighing. It would not let you stop.
Chapter 5. The Diary. When dawn finally arrived, it felt less like morning and more like a reprieve, a stay of execution. The pale light seeped reluctantly into the small room, gray and weak, barely piercing the heavy curtains. You hadn't slept, not really. Every time your eyes shut, you felt it. The pull of the house, the weight in the mattress beside you, the rhythm of your own breath caught in its cycle. You'd sit up, gasping, only to find the air stale and still. At some point, exhaustion dulled your fear enough for you to drift into a shallow doze, and that was when you dreamed. Not of the house exactly, but of corridors that bent and bent without ending, of walls that pulsed like veins, of a voice whispering your name until you no longer knew if it was calling you into the house or out of yourself. When you woke, your throat ached. You forced yourself up, determined to look for proof, something tangible to make sense of the night. The silence was heavier than before, the kind that presses into your ears, making your own pulse sound too loud. You explored again, keeping your hand against the wall as though that thin contact could anchor you. The wallpaper flaked under your touch, leaving pale smears of dust. It was in the upstairs study that you found it, a narrow room with tall shelves, most sagging under the weight of mold-bloomed books. Papers littered the desk, curled with damp. At first, you thought it was useless, just another collection of ruined pages. Then you noticed the journal. Its leather cover was cracked, the strap brittle. Inside, the pages were stiff, but the ink still legible,
scrawled in a hurried, uneven hand. You sat at the desk and began to read. March 2nd, 1911. The house listens. I hear it when I sleep. At first it was the walls that sighed, but now I think it is closer. Beneath the bed, behind the mirror. It whispers, and when I do not answer, it waits. You flipped forward, pages yellowing under your fingers. March 19th. It has learned my name. Not from neighbors, for there are none left. It pulled it from me in sleep. It pulled other things too. I woke weak, short of breath, but the house was strong. Its beams stretched and groaned as though they were ribs. Another page, the ink blotted darker as though written in haste. April 3rd. I tried to leave. The doors closed. The windows opened onto walls, not sky. The house will not let me. It does not want visitors. It wants tenants. Lungs, blood, breath. You turned to the final entry, written shakily, the words slanting toward the page's edge. April 17th. It says it will keep breathing for me, that I will never run out of air if I stay. I think it already has. My chest rises when I do not ask it to. My hands shake when I try to be still. I am afraid that when I stop writing, the words will not stop. It will keep writing for me. It will keep living for me. The ending ended in a jagged line, pen dragged across the page as though ripped away. You sat back, stomach cold. The air in the study felt thin, as if stolen. A noise stirred then, soft, almost polite. You turned toward the corner. The bookshelf creaked, swayed slightly. Something shifted behind it. A whisper, muffled by wood. Your name. You stumbled from the study, slamming the door behind you. In the hallway, your phone buzzed. For the first time since you arrived, a message came through. Not from Marcy, not from Caleb, but from an unknown number. You unlocked the screen with trembling hands. The message was only 2 words. Keep breathing.
Chapter 6. Shadows in the Hall. You didn't go back into the study. The journal lay where you had left it, though you could almost feel its words pressing through the door, pushing against your thoughts. Keep breathing. The phrase stuck in your mind like a splinter, repeating with every inhale, every exhale. The hallway seemed longer now, narrower. The wallpaper curled inward, as if it were shrinking, drawing the corridor tighter. The windows let in only a weak, gray light, though you swore you had seen sunlight when you first arrived. You told yourself you'd wait until morning and leave. Dare or no dare, Caleb could laugh all he wanted. But a gnawing certainty rose with the thought. The doors wouldn't open. The journal hadn't been exaggeration. To test yourself, you went downstairs. The front door was heavy, its brass knob cold against your palm. You twisted hard. It turned, yes, but when you pulled, the door didn't move, not even a shudder. You pushed with your shoulder until pain sparked in the bone, but the wood might as well have been stone. The house exhaled softly behind you, boards sighing like someone amused. You turned sharply. For a moment, you thought you saw it, something moving in the far hallway. A figure, a shape darker than shadow, gliding silently across the wall. Your breath caught. Who's there? No answer. But when you lifted the flashlight, its beam landed on the wall at the end of the hall. There, stretched tall and wrong, was a shadow that didn't belong to you. Its head cocked at a slight angle, its arms longer than they should have been. It stood perfectly still. The light flickered. When it steadied, the shadow was gone. You stumbled back into your room, chest tight. The mattress waited, sagging. You didn't lie down.
Instead, you sat against the wall, flashlight balanced on your knees, phone in your hand. You tried Marcy again. "Please answer, not funny anymore." The message failed to send. You tried calling. The line rang once, then cut to static. In the static, you thought you heard a voice, low, warped. "Go." The phone went dark. That was when you heard it again. Footsteps. Upstairs. Slow. Deliberate. You clenched the flashlight tighter, forcing yourself to step into the hall. The stairs groaned as you climbed, every sound magnified in the silence. At the top, the corridor stretched before you, lined with closed doors. The air smelled faintly of rot and something sour, like old breath caught in fabric. You turned the flashlight. For a moment, the beam caught movement, something slipping into the star-patterned bedroom you had seen before. You pushed the door open. The room was still. The wallpaper hung in tatters, stars faded to pale gray. The bed was small, frame rusted, sheets long decayed. But the shadows didn't match. The bed cast a shadow, yes, but there was another beside it. A darker patch, shaped vaguely like a child curled under blankets. Your mouth went dry. "Hello?" you whispered. The shadow shifted. Not the bed, not the blankets. The shadow itself moved, rolling toward you as though it had heard its name. The floorboards sighed with the long exhale of the house. You slammed the door and stumbled back into the hallway. Behind you, something laughed softly. Not cruel, not kind, just the sound of breath given shape.
Chapter 7. The Basement Door. The basement had always been there, or at least you remembered seeing a door in the corner of the hallway. All day you had avoided it, pretending it didn't exist. But now, after the shadows and whispers and the journal's warnings, you knew you could not ignore it any longer. The door was low and squat, made of warped wood. Its surface was cracked, the paint peeled away like skin. The handle was cold, rusty, yet it turned smoothly, as if expecting you. You paused, heart hammering. "I don't have to do this," you whispered, more to yourself than anyone else. But the house exhaled softly, a sound that seemed almost like coaxing. "Come." Summoning every ounce of courage, you pushed the door open. The basement yawned before you, dark and cold. The stairs descended steeply, blackness swallowing the first few steps. You held the flashlight ahead, its beam trembling against the walls. The air smelled heavier here, damp and sour, like earth and decay mixed with something else, metallic like old blood. The walls were lined with stones, uneven and slick with moisture. Your boots echoed on the stairs, but underneath the echo, you thought you heard another sound, soft, like scraping. A box, perhaps, or claws. You reached the bottom. The beam landed on a small, dusty room. Shelves lined the walls, filled with jars of strange substances, bottles with faded labels, and objects that were hard to identify. Small toys, carved figurines, pieces of torn cloth. A child's drawing pinned to the wall. Stick figures with hollow eyes, one larger figure looming over them, drawn in thick, black strokes. Something stirred in the darkness behind the shelves. You turned, heart racing, but the light revealed only dust motes floating lazily in the air. Then you noticed the floor. The wood wasn't uniform here. It bulged slightly in patches, like veins beneath skin. One patch shifted, slowly, deliberately. You stepped back, flashlight shaking in your hands. A whisper brushed your ear. "Do you see now?" The voice was closer than before, curling around your skull. The floor beneath the bulge groaned, and suddenly the air was full of sound. A low, rhythmic breathing, pulsing like a heartbeat.
You realized the sound was beneath you. The house itself inhaled and exhaled, and the movement beneath the floor matched it perfectly. You crouched, peering closer. The floorboards weren't just warped, they were breathing, stretching and contracting, rising and falling, as though something massive lay hidden beneath. The thought clawed at your mind. Something alive, something waiting, something that had learned your name. A cold wind brushed past your neck. You turned sharply, flashlight sweeping the room. Shadows clung to the corners, stretching unnaturally, forming shapes you could not recognize. Figures with elongated limbs, faces too faint to see, yet you could feel their eyes. The floor beneath your feet shifted again, heavier this time, and you realized with a jolt that the house wasn't just alive. It was aware. It was watching, learning, and waiting. You scrambled up the stairs, nearly tripping. The door closed behind you with a soft click, as if satisfied. You leaned against it, gasping, the words of the journal echoing in your mind. It does not want visitors, it wants tenants, blood, breath. The house exhaled, and you knew, without a doubt, it was hungry.
The third night. The third night arrived like a weight pressing down from above. By now, the house was no longer a backdrop to your fear. It had become a living presence, a predator moving through the boards and plaster. Every sound was magnified, every groan or sigh a deliberate message. You stayed in your small room for much of the evening, flashlight clutched tightly, journal pages from the study laid before you like shields. The sun had set hours ago, leaving the windows black, hollow, like empty eyes staring back at you. The breathing began again as it always did, slow, measured, patient. But tonight it was different. It matched your own rhythm perfectly, stretching with every inhale, contracting with every exhale. You held your breath once, and the house inhaled for you. You exhaled slowly, and the walls answered in kind, creaking, sighing, stretching. "You're alive," you whispered, voice cracking. You're alive." The reply came, soft, everywhere at once. "Alive because you are. Alive because I let you be." You jolted upright, flashlight swinging. The walls seemed to pulse, as if the wallpaper itself breathed in tandem with the house. Shadows undulated in corners, bending and stretching with a life of their own. It was then you noticed the mirror across the room, one of the old cracked shards still intact. Your reflection rose as you did, but with a faint delay. A second later, the reflection's hand lifted when yours hadn't moved. Its head tilted slightly, mimicking your movements, almost playfully. "No," you muttered. "I'm in charge. You don't." The house answered again, in the softest of whispers. "You are mine as long as you breathe. I learn. I follow. I keep." Something shifted in the shadows. At first it was barely perceptible, a distortion in the corner of the room. Then a shape solidified. A figure, faceless, blacker than the shadows, mirrored your stance. You lifted your hand, it lifted its hand. You blinked, it blinked. Panic rose like fire in your chest. You wanted to run, but the door was still locked. You couldn't leave. The air grew thicker, harder to draw in. Your own chest ached, lungs tightening, as though the house had pressed itself into the very walls of your body. You stumbled to the bed, gripping the edges, trying to anchor yourself in reality. "I keep breathing for you," the house whispered again. And then it did something new. The mattress shifted, not last time, but as though something had lain across the foot of the bed, something that moved deliberately, curling around your legs without touching skin, tracing a path that felt alive. A cold draft brushed your face. You froze.
The shadows around the room began to stretch upward, flowing along the ceiling, forming shapes that writhed just at the edge of perception. Your reflection in the mirror shifted again, but this time it smiled, an expression you did not make. The house exhaled, filling the room with a sound like a chorus of lungs, and you realized the terrifying truth. It didn't just mirror you. It had begun to teach you how to move, how to breathe, how to exist within its walls. Every inhale you drew, every motion you made was already shared with something vast and patient, waiting for the moment you would stop. And when you closed your eyes, trying to reclaim control, the shadows moved closer, patient and inevitable. You were no longer alone.
Chapter 9. The Portrait Room. The next morning, or what passed for morning within the house, you found the courage to explore again. The previous night's terror weighed heavily in your chest, your limbs aching as if the shadows had left marks you couldn't see. But something drew you. A corridor you hadn't fully investigated, a door tucked beneath a faded archway, its frame carved with twisted, unfamiliar symbols. The door gave way with a low groan. Beyond it lay the portrait room. Rows of paintings covered the walls, all framed in blackened wood. At first glance, they were ordinary. Men in suits, women in stiff dresses, children clutching toys. But as your flashlight swept across the room, a chilling pattern emerged. The eyes followed you. Not merely turned in your direction, but they shifted independently of the brushstrokes, glimmering with life. Your hand hovered over a small girl's portrait. Her eyes widened as you moved, then blinked. You stumbled back, heart pounding. "Impossible," you whispered. The walls seemed to pulse in answer. Shadows crept along the corners, stretching toward the paintings. You shone the flashlight across them, one by one. A boy in a sailor suit smiled as you approached, a thin, crooked smile that was not in the original painting. A woman in a lace collar turned her head ever so slightly, lips moving, whispering something you couldn't hear. You stepped closer to the largest portrait, a man with hollow eyes and a faintly smiling mouth. His gaze met yours, and suddenly your reflection in the glass behind the frame shifted. Your face pale, lips stretched in a grin you did not make. The house inhaled. The boards beneath your feet groaned. Your shadow danced along the wall, but the other shadows did not move like you. They wriggled, detached from your body, reaching toward the portraits as if pulling something from within them. A whisper slithered into your ear. "See them? They stay because they learned to breathe." You stumbled back, bumping into a pedestal. A small journal lay atop it, bound in black leather, smaller than the one you had found in the study. You opened it, hands shaking. The pages were filled with sketches, stick figures, children, and distorted faces, their eyes hollow, mouth open in silent screams. Words scrawled between the drawings. The house wants you. It keeps you moving. It keeps you alive. But only if you follow. A breeze passed through the room. The curtains swirled, even though the windows were closed. And then the largest portrait shifted. The man's head tilted, his lips moving in a silent laugh. You couldn't look away. Your reflection in the nearest mirror no longer matched your movements. Every motion you made, your mirrored self did slightly later, and the shadow behind you stretched even longer, curling toward the floor as if reaching for something unseen. The air thickened, your lungs aching as if each breath were filtered through the walls themselves. You felt dizzy, your knees weak, and then a sound that made your blood run cold. A soft, dragging step from behind the portraits, slow and deliberate.
Something inside the wall had moved, shifting closer, unseen yet fully present. The house exhaled, deep and satisfied, filling the room with a weight that pressed into your chest. You realized with horror, the portraits were not just watching you, they were learning you. And one day, if you stayed too long, they would leave the frames and step into the hall.
Chapter 10. The Attic. The attic staircase creaked under your weight, each step protesting in long, drawn-out groans. You had avoided this space until now, convinced that the shadows, whispers, and portraits were enough. But curiosity, or perhaps a deeper compulsion, drove you upward. The attic door was narrow and low, its hinges rusted with age. When you pushed it open, the air hit you like a wall, cold, dusty, and thick with the smell of aged wood and something sweeter, almost rotting. The flashlight beam cut through the gloom, revealing a cramped space filled with trunks, broken furniture, and piles of forgotten belongings. Toys were scattered across the floor, wooden soldiers with chipped paint, dolls missing eyes, small wagons with wheels frozen by rust. They were arranged as if waiting for someone to return, frozen mid-play. A faint sound reached your ears, the patter of small feet, soft and uneven, moving just beyond the light. You froze, heart hammering. "Hello?" you whispered, voice cracking. No answer, only the scratching of tiny claws against the wooden floor, echoing in the low ceiling. The flashlight beam trembled as it swept across the room. Shadows coalesced into shapes, crouched and crawling, moving just at the edge of perception. Something small darted across the beams. A child? A doll? You couldn't tell. The forms twisted unnaturally, limbs bending in ways that shouldn't be possible. One of the dolls shifted on its own, turning its head toward you. Its glass eyes reflected the flashlight, wide and unblinking. A whisper curled through the attic, soft and cold. "Play with us. Breathe with us." You stumbled backward, tripping over a trunk. The lid swung open with a crack, spilling its contents. Old clothes, letters, a cracked porcelain doll whose mouth seemed to move in the dim light. The air thickened, making every breath a labor. Then you heard it, the dragging of something heavier, moving beneath the floorboards. The attic seemed to pulse with each exhale of the house, the walls stretching upward and the ceiling contracting. You realized with a jolt, it was following your breathing again. Every inhalation you took was mirrored by a movement in the shadows, a response from something alive inside the wood. The small shapes darted closer. Tiny whispers threaded together into a chorus, faint but distinct. "Keep breathing, keep moving, stay with us." You pressed yourself against the far wall, the flashlight trembling in your hands. One small figure crawled from beneath a pile of trunks, limbs bending at impossible angles. Its head tilted toward you, lips opening and closing as though trying to speak. A gust of cold wind swept through the attic. The doll's eyes glinted, the shadow children froze mid-step, and the house exhaled once more, deep and satisfied. You realized with the weight of certainty that the attic wasn't just storage, it was a nursery, a holding place, and you had just arrived. Your chest ached, lungs straining as the house breathed through you, synchronizing every motion, every inhalation, every tremor of fear. The whispers rose, layering over each other into a single low chant. "Keep breathing, stay with us, always with us." And for the first time, you understood. You were no longer a visitor. You were part of the house. Chapter 11. A Visitor. The following morning, or what passed for morning inside the house, you lingered in your small room,
staring at the walls as if willing them to stop moving. Every groan of the floorboards, every whisper through the cracks made your pulse spike. You hadn't slept. Your chest felt hollow, lungs still tight from the house's relentless rhythm. A sound outside the front door startled you, a low, gravelly knock. You froze, hand trembling as you held the flashlight. The house, as if aware of your hesitation, exhaled slowly. "Who's there?" you called, voice thin. The knock came again, firmer this time. Hesitant footsteps scuffed along the gravel. Then a voice, dry and cautious. "You shouldn't be here." You swallowed, heart pounding. Who's there?" The door rattled slightly. A woman's face appeared in the narrow gap of the cracked door. Her skin was pale, eyes sharp and wary, lined with exhaustion. She held a bag close to her chest. "The Kessler house," she said, voice low. "You can't stay here, not alone. It's alive. It watches. It learns." You stepped back. "Alive? You mean ghosts? Stories?" She shook her head. "No, it's worse. It's not just stories. It keeps the ones who enter. Breath, movement. It doesn't let go. You're already part of it if you've been here more than a day." Your stomach twisted. I haven't. You can leave," she said sharply, "but it won't let you, not easily. If you try, the doors will lock, the windows will twist to walls. It breathes for you, it moves with you, and if you stop, well, you don't want to find out." You took a step toward the door. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I lived to tell it," she replied, voice dropping. "Years ago. I thought I could ignore it, cheat it, sneak away. The house doesn't forgive mistakes. It keeps what it wants, and it's patient. It learns names, habits, your breath. I got away, barely. Others weren't so lucky." Her gaze was unyielding. "If you leave, don't look back. Don't try to move faster than the house allows, and don't sleep here. If you sleep, it claims more than you know." A tremor ran through you. Is there a way to fight it?" The woman's expression softened, almost pitying. "No, not truly. You can resist for a time, but it always wins. You have to stay aware, awake, moving, or it will teach you in ways you won't understand until it's too late." She stepped back, pressing her hand against the door. "I have to go. Remember, keep breathing, keep moving, and pray it doesn't like your name." Then she was gone, leaving the door rattling in the wind. The house exhaled long and slow, as if sighing with satisfaction. The shadows in the hall stretched towards you, and you realized something terrifying. She had been right. You were already part of it. Your lungs ached, your chest tight. Every exhale matched the house's groan. Every step you took reverberated through the boards, mirrored by something beneath the floors, something patient and waiting. And outside, the sun burned weakly through gray clouds, but inside, the house's darkness had already claimed the day.
Chapter 12. The Fourth Night. By the fourth night, exhaustion had wrapped around you like a shroud. Sleep was no longer a possibility. Every creak of the floorboards, every sigh of the walls reminded you that the house was awake and watching. Your chest ached, lungs burning from the constant mimicry of its rhythm. You sat on the edge of the bed, flashlight trembling in your hands, journal pages spread around you like fragile shields. The breathing began slowly, at first soft, almost polite. Then it grew, expanding into the room like a tide. Each inhale drawing the air from your own lungs, each exhale pushing back against you. The shadows in the corners shifted with an uncanny intelligence. You rose, hands outstretched to steady yourself, and the house moved in tandem.
The walls stretched, the floorboards groaned, and the ceiling seemed to bend as though the room itself was taking a breath alongside you. You tried to step backward. The floorboards matched your motion, sliding slightly underfoot, as though mirroring your hesitation. You reached for the door. It resisted, locked again. A whisper slid through the darkness. "Do not stop. Breathe with me. Move with me. We are one." Your reflection in the cracked mirror trembled. You raised a hand. Your mirrored self lifted after a delay. The shadows along the walls curled toward you, elongated, stretching to meet the shapes of the paintings, the toys, the children's sketches that haunted every room. Panic surged. "I'm not yours," you shouted. The house exhaled, a low, resonant sound that filled every corner, vibrating in your chest. Your words faltered, swallowed by the weight of it. It was patient, massive, deliberate. It did not rush. It simply existed, and you were caught inside its rhythm. Your heartbeat quickened, matching the wall's pulse. Each breath you tried to take alone was answered with the house's inhale, forcing you into a cadence you could not escape. The shadows along the corners grew taller, darker, some twisting into forms vaguely humanoid. Others seemed to crawl along the floorboards, unseen but felt, brushing against your ankles, leaving a chill that sank to your bones. You sank to the floor, gripping your knees, gasping. The mattress beside you shifted once, then twice, as though a heavy weight pressed down deliberately, reminding you of its presence. "We keep you," it whispered, "because you breathe, because you move, because you let us." You coughed, trying to resist, to pull away, but the house inhaled with you, mirrored you in every motion. Every trembling step, every shallow breath, every faltering movement, it was echoed, magnified, and absorbed. Hours passed like minutes. Minutes stretched into eternity. The shadows grew restless, swirling, twisting into shapes that mimicked you, followed you, mocked you. Your body ached, your lungs burned, but the house would not let you stop. And when you finally allowed yourself to lie down, exhausted, the mattress sank beside you once more. A whisper came through the pillow. "Sleep, and we breathe for you, always." And the house exhaled, stretching through the walls, the floors, the ceiling, and into your very chest. You understood now. You were no longer a visitor. You were a part of it. The walls open. By now, you moved through the house with a strange mixture of fear and familiarity. The walls groaned with every step, echoing your heartbeat and mimicking your movements. But as the fourth night deepened, you noticed something new. The walls themselves seemed to shift, subtle at first, then unmistakable. A hallway you had walked countless times appeared slightly longer. A corner that had always been solid now seemed to hollow, the wallpaper rippling like skin. You paused, hand pressing against it, and the surface gave a little, soft, pliant, alive. The house exhaled. With trembling fingers, you pressed harder. The wall bowed inward, revealing a narrow opening, dark and tight. Dust rose from the gap, and a cold draft blew toward you, carrying faint whispers. You peered inside. A passage, lined with rough stone, twisted downward into darkness. "It wants you to see." The whisper slithered through the hall, brushing your ear. You took a hesitant step forward. The passage smelled of damp earth, rust, and something else, something metallic. The floor beneath your boots was uneven, rising and falling like the pulse of a living thing. The walls throbbed with every breath you took, echoing your own rhythm back to you. Shadows moved ahead, flitting along the edges of your flashlight. Shapes too long, too dark, too fluid to be human. They stretched toward the passage, then recoiled when you approached. One seemed to linger, watching, almost curious. The farther you went, the stronger the sensation became. The house itself was alive beneath the surface. You pressed your palm against the stone, feeling faint vibrations. Something vast slivered just beneath your touch, unseen yet undeniable. At the end of the passage, a heavy wooden door appeared, blackened with age. Symbols, twisted and indecipherable, were carved deep into the surface. The whisper came again. "Beyond here is what feeds me." Your hand shook as you lifted the latch. The door opened slowly, revealing a cavernous space below the house. Roots, pipes, and tangled wood crisscrossed the walls. Faint, pulsing lights glimmered in the dark, like veins of some colossal organism. The air was thick and heavy, vibrating with every inhale and exhale you took. In the center of the chamber, a pit yawned, dark and deep. Something moved within it, a shadow too large to define, writhing, stretching, and undulating as if alive. Whispers rose from the pit, layering together into a chorus. "Breathe, move, live, or join us." Your stomach churned. Every instinct screamed to turn back, to run, but your chest tightened. You realized with sickening clarity, the house did not just breathe for you, it fed on you. Every movement, every breath, every fear was fuel. And if you stopped, even for a moment, the walls themselves would claim you. The whisper curled around your ears once more. "Come closer. See what keeps us alive. See what keeps you breathing." The house exhaled, long and low, filling the chamber and your very lungs with its presence. Chapter 14. The Bargain. The pit at the center of the hidden chamber pulsed with a strange, living rhythm. The house exhaled around you, a sound so deep it vibrated through the stone walls and into your chest. You wanted to flee, but your legs were led, your lungs tethered to the rhythm of the walls. Then it spoke, not a whisper, not a breath, but words full and deliberate, echoing from every corner, every creak, every shadow. "You are mine. You have been mine since the day you arrived. You breathe, I keep you. You move, I follow. And now, you may choose." You stumbled backward, flashlight trembling. "Choose? What?" "Life," the house replied, "or freedom. But freedom comes with cost." A chill ran down your spine. "What cost?" "To leave is to give up your breath. To stop is to join us. To stay is to survive, but only as part of me. I offer safety, but it is not the life you knew. Do you understand?" You swallowed, heart hammering. The shadows along the walls began to stretch taller, moving independently, curling toward the pit as though drawn to something living. Shapes writhed there, indistinct but alive, faces hidden in darkness. "Stay," the house murmured again, "and I will keep your breath steady. I will not let it falter. You will move, you will live, but always with me. Leave, and the doors will close, the floors will twist, the walls will consume." The choice was impossible. Every instinct in your body screamed to flee, to run far from the house, far from its exhalations and shadows. Yet even imagining leaving filled your lungs with a phantom weight, a sense of being torn from yourself, unmade. You took a tentative step closer to the pit. The shadows recoiled slightly, then circled you, brushing against your legs, rising like smoke toward your face. You coughed, lungs burning, and felt the rhythm of the house settle in your chest again. "Decide," it whispered, "or be decided for." For a moment, clarity struck. You could stay, synchronize fully, breathe safely within its walls, but you would no longer be free. Every movement, every thought, every breath would be mirrored, guided, owned, but you would survive. Or you could run, risk everything, fight against the rhythm, gamble that your lungs and limbs could escape a house that had already learned your name. Your chest heaved, sweat stung your eyes. You could feel the pulse of the walls in your fingers as you pressed them against the stone, as if the house itself waited for your answer. Then the whisper came again, soft and patient. Breathe. Choose. The shadows paused. The pit pulsed. The air trembled. And for the first time, you understood that no matter what you decided, the house would not release you entirely. It could wait, it could learn, and it always waited for those who underestimated its patience.
Chapter 15. The Last Night. Night fell like a shroud, thicker and colder than any before. The house seemed to inhale as the sun disappeared, filling every corridor, every room, every shadow with a living presence. Your body ached, lungs burning from the relentless rhythm. The walls groaned with anticipation, the floorboards quivering beneath your feet. You moved cautiously through the hallways, flashlight trembling in your hands, shadows curling toward you with unnatural speed. The portraits followed your every step, the eyes glinting with intelligence and hunger. Toys in the attic shifted slightly, as if pushed by unseen hands. Then you heard it, a chorus of whispers, layered, deep, omnipresent. Breathe, move, live with us, or stop, join us. The walls themselves began to bend outward, revealing glimpses of rooms you didn't remember, spaces that had been hidden behind panels and wallpaper. Shapes formed and dissolved in the corners, humanoid but impossible, limbs bending at angles no human body could manage. The shadows reached, grasping, pulling at the edges of your mind. Your reflection in the mirror twisted, smiling when you did not. You pressed your hands to it, and it pressed back, cold, resisting. The house exhaled through the floors, the walls, the ceiling, and you felt it in your chest, as if it had claimed your heartbeat. A sudden shift in the air drew your gaze downward. The pit in the basement, hidden until now, pulsed with something vast, alive, thrumming with a rhythm that matched the house itself. You realized then that the house was not just alive. It was a network, a single organism, and you were its prey and its pulse. Choose, it whispered again. You felt your knees give way. Every instinct screamed to flee, yet your body felt heavy, tethered to the rhythm, to the breathing, to the house itself. You tried to run. Doors resisted, floors warped, shadows thickened, brushing against you, slowing you, pressing into your mind. And then you understood. Freedom was impossible. The house had learned your name, your breath, your very movements. Every attempt to escape was anticipated, mirrored, absorbed. You sank to the floor, chest heaving, gasping, lungs straining. The shadows paused, the walls softened, the exhale slowed. The house watched. It waited. Breathe, it murmured. Stay, and you live. Stop, and join us. Tears ran down your face. Exhausted, trapped, tethered to its pulse, you made your choice. You let yourself breathe. The shadows recoiled slightly. The walls exhaled in satisfaction. The house settled, stretching, sighing, a deep, resonant rhythm pulsing through the structure. You were alive, but no longer alone. Your chest rose and fell in time with the house. Your movements mirrored its pulse. Your breath was no longer entirely your own. You were part of it, a tenant,
a survivor and a prisoner all at once. Outside, the sun rose weakly, but inside, the house breathed. Always. Patient. Vast. Eternal. And you understood at last. It did not merely keep its tenants alive. It became them, weaving their lives into its walls, learning, waiting, breathing. You closed your eyes, surrendering to the rhythm. The house exhaled, and in that breath, you were lost.
Did you enjoy that short story? I hope you found it spooky. Now, time for another tale. Corridors of Eternity. Chapter 1. The House That Listens. Elias had always walked past the old house on the hill with a mixture of curiosity and unease. Its windows were dark and vacant, yet they seemed almost to follow him, shadows moving just beneath the glass. In the town, the house had a reputation. The elders called it the house that listens, warning children never to go near. But Elias had never believed in whispers or ghosts. He believed in logic. Still, lately, he had been hearing something. At night, when the world outside had gone quiet, faint murmurs floated to his window. Not the wind, not the rustling leaves, but soft, deliberate sounds that seemed to call his name. At first, he thought it was a dream, but then the voices persisted. "Elias," a voice hissed one night, almost imperceptibly. "Elias, come." He sat up in bed, heart pounding. The room was dark and still, save for the moonlight spilling across the floorboards. He rubbed his eyes, telling himself it was his imagination. But the voice came again, clearer this time, closer. "Elias, we've been waiting." Fear prickled at the back of his neck. He wanted to ignore it, to pull the blankets over his head and pretend nothing had happened. But curiosity was stronger than fear. That night, he dressed quietly and stepped into the cold air, the whispers fading as he left his room. The path to the house was overgrown. Wet grass clung to his trousers, and the fog hung low, thick, and silver around the roots of the trees. With each step, the air seemed heavier, almost tangible, pressing against his chest. The house rose before him like a dark sentinel, its walls swollen with shadow. The front door, warped with age, radiated a strange warmth, as if someone had just let go of it. "Come inside," the voice said again. "We've been waiting." Elias hesitated, then reached for the door. It swung open silently, revealing a long, narrow hallway shrouded in gloom. Dust motes danced in the faint light filtering through the cracks. The air smelled of rain and old paper, with a faint metallic tang that made him wrinkle his nose. "Hello?" he called, his voice trembling. The house answered not with words, but with silence. And then a soft, almost imperceptible whisper that seemed to drift from the walls themselves. "We see you. We see you." Elias stepped inside. The floorboards groaned under his weight. Shadows shifted in the corners, and mirrors appeared along the walls, reflecting nothing of the room or of him. Instead, each reflection showed him asleep in his bed, eyes wide open, staring, waiting. A shiver ran down his spine. This isn't real," he muttered. But the whisper came again, and this time he could almost feel it pressing against his eardrums. "It is real. Listen, watch, never leave."
He tried to turn back, but the door had vanished. In its place was a solid wall, the paint blistered and peeling. Panic surged, but it was accompanied by a strange calm, as if the house itself was breathing, and he was meant to be part of it. In the heart of the hallway, a single candle flickered in a sconce. Elias moved toward it, drawn by its lonely light. Shadows twisted on the walls, and from the darkness, a figure emerged. It was tall, indistinct, and silent, with eyes that gleamed like wet stones. "Who are you?" Elias demanded, stepping back. The figure tilted its head. The voice came again, now a chorus, overlapping voices like 1,000 mouths speaking at once. "We are the ones who listen. We have always waited. It is your turn." Elias stumbled backward, and the candle guttered, plunging the hallway into darkness. The mirrors multiplied, surrounding him, reflecting not him, but something else, something older, hollow-eyed, smiling. The house was alive, and it was waiting.
Chapter 2. The Hall of Mirrors. The darkness clung to Elias like a wet shroud. Every instinct screamed at him to run, yet his feet moved forward, guided by a strange, unexplainable curiosity. The air inside the house was thick, almost sticky, carrying the scent of old paper and something faintly metallic, blood, perhaps, or rust. He tried to steady his breathing, but each exhale came out shaky, and every heartbeat echoed in the silent halls. The mirrors stretched endlessly before him, walls multiplying into corridors he hadn't noticed moments ago. He reached out to touch one. The glass was ice cold, and the reflection stared back at him. But it wasn't quite him. His face was pale, drawn, and hollow-eyed, as if some part of him had already been claimed by the house. A whisper came from somewhere behind the mirrors. "Elias," it said softly, almost coaxingly. "Don't be afraid. Come closer." I don't know if I should," he stammered. His voice sounded foreign, distant, swallowed by the walls. "What do you want from me?" The mirrors seemed to shiver, and the whisper grew louder, a chorus now, each voice overlapping the other. "We want you to see. We want you to hear. We want you to understand." Elias took a hesitant step forward. One of the mirrors, larger than the others, rippled slightly, like water disturbed by a falling stone. The reflection inside it moved independently, turning its head to watch him with a patience that was almost unbearable. Why are you showing me this?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. The figure in the glass smiled faintly. Its lips moved, but no sound came. Then the whispering grew, more urgent, more insistent. "Because soon you will join us. Because soon you will listen forever." Elias took a hesitant step forward. One of the mirrors, larger than the others, rippled slightly, like water disturbed by a falling stone. The reflection inside it moved independently, turning its head to watch him with a patience that was almost unbearable. Why are you showing me this?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. The figure in the glass smiled faintly. Its lips moved, but no sound came. Then the whispering grew, more urgent, more insistent. "Because soon you will join us. Because soon you will listen forever." The candle he had carried flickered again, revealing a long corridor lined with doors. Each door was unique, some carved from dark, aged wood, others painted with strange, swirling patterns that seemed to move when he looked away. One door at the far end was slightly ajar,
spilling dim light into the corridor. Elias felt drawn to it, though every rational part of him screamed to stop. As he approached, a sudden cold gust swept through the hall. The mirrors vibrated, and the reflections within them warped, twisting his own image into grotesque forms. His shadow stretched and split, forming shapes that seemed almost alive. "Elias," the whispers called again, this time urgently, almost pleading. "Come inside. You belong here." With a trembling hand, he pushed the door open. Beyond it lay a room filled with dust-covered furniture, old portraits lining the walls. The eyes in the paintings seemed to follow him as he moved. In the center of the room was a chair facing another mirror, enormous and framed in dark, twisting wood. A single candle sat on a small table beside it. The mirror shimmered, showing a scene that made Elias's stomach tighten. Himself lying in his own bed at home, wide-eyed and awake, staring at the ceiling as if trapped in a nightmare. He turned to leave, but the door slammed shut behind him. The room plunged into darkness, and a low, wet breathing filled the space. Elias's heart pounded. "Please," he whispered, "I don't understand." The mirror rippled again, and the reflections shifted. Shadows emerged from the glass, forming shapes that reached toward him with long, twisting fingers. Whispers filled the room. "You are listening. You are seeing. You are ours." Elias stumbled backward, knocking over the candle. The flame flared briefly, illuminating the shadows before extinguishing. He found himself engulfed in blackness, yet somehow he could still see. The mirrors now lining the walls of the room itself, endless, stretching beyond comprehension. He realized with a sinking dread that the house was not merely around him. It was inside him. And it had been waiting all along.
Chapter 3. The Voices Behind the Walls. Elias pressed his back against the cold wall, trying to calm the frantic beating of his heart. The darkness pressed in from every side, and yet the mirrors glimmered faintly, reflecting not his own image, but fragments, shapes moving just beyond comprehension, shadows writhing with intent. A whisper floated from the walls themselves. "Elias, do you hear us?" He swallowed hard. "Yes, I hear you." His voice cracked. "But why? Why me?" The shadows pulsed, and one of the mirrors shimmered. This time, the reflection was not of him, but of a long hallway lined with doors, each door opening and closing slowly, almost rhythmically, as if breathing. "Because," the chorus of voices answered in unison, "you have always listened. You have always been awake when others slept. You hear what others ignore." Who are you?" he whispered, trembling. The mirrors flickered, and suddenly dozens of pale faces appeared, pressed against the glass, mouths moving in silent speech. One face leaned closer, its eyes dark and infinite, and whispered, "Do you want to understand, Elias? To truly see what the world hides?" He hesitated, his rational mind screaming for him to run. Yet his feet carried him forward. Something inside him, a mix of fear, fascination, and an unexplainable compulsion, drove him toward the largest mirror. "You cannot leave," the voices said, soft but relentless. "Not until you have listened, not until you have seen." The mirror rippled. From its depths, a hand emerged, pale and wet, reaching for him. Elias stumbled back, nearly falling. "No, I don't belong here," he shouted, panic rising. "Do not resist," the chorus whispered. "Resistance is unnecessary." A sudden draft swept through the room, extinguishing the lone candle. In the darkness, Elias felt a movement behind him.
Something cold brushed his shoulder. He spun around. Nothing. Elias. The voice now came from directly behind the walls, surrounding him. You are awake. You are listening. You are ready. He backed into the mirror, and as he touched its surface, it rippled again. His reflection grinned, an impossible hollow smile. He pulled his hand away, heart hammering. Stay. Come. See. The chorus urged, louder now, closer, more insistent. Elias stumbled through the shadows, guided by an instinct he did not understand. The room seemed endless, the walls breathing, expanding, twisting. Each mirror along the walls now reflected not him, but countless versions of the house, rooms nested within rooms, corridors that led nowhere, yet everywhere at once. A whisper tickled his ear. You are one of us now, Elias. You have listened. You have seen. Soon, you will never forget. He felt a cold hand grasp his wrist, icy and unyielding. He tried to pull away, but the shadows held him. The mirrors rippled, showing him visions of his own life, altered and warped. In each one, he was already part of the house, his eyes wide, staring, waiting. Elias fell to his knees, gasping for breath. No, I don't want this. I don't belong here. The chorus softened, almost kindly. Belonging is irrelevant. You are awake. You hear what others ignore. And now you will learn to listen as we do. The mirrors began to hum, a low, resonant sound that vibrated through his bones. Shapes writhed behind the glass, faces screaming silently, eyes opening wide in endless anticipation. And through it all, Elias felt something strange, a pull, a tug at the edges of his consciousness, as though the house itself was drawing him in, teaching him, shaping him. Hours, or maybe minutes, passed. Time had no meaning here. And as Elias gazed into the mirrors, he realized the truth. The house did not merely observe. It listened, it watched, and it consumed. You are awake now, the voices said. You have listened, you have seen, and soon you will speak for us. Elias sank to the floor, trembling. The mirrors shimmered, the shadows twisted, and the whispers continued, endless, patient, and inexorable. Listen, Elias. Always listen.
Chapter 4. The Corridors of Time. Elias awoke, or thought he awoke, in a room unfamiliar, though he recognized the smell immediately. Damp wood, old paper, and something metallic, faintly coppery, lingering like blood. His hands trembled as he touched the walls. They were no longer solid. Instead, they rippled slightly, as if the house itself were alive, its skin flexible, breathing. Elias! A whisper floated from everywhere at once. You are awake again. You have listened, but now you must see. He looked around. The room had no doors, only mirrors and shadows, and in each mirror his reflection moved independently. In one, he was kneeling. In another, he was screaming. In a third, his eyes were black voids, staring endlessly into the mirror. Stop! I don't understand, he whispered, voice shaking. Why me? The chorus of voices swelled, soft but insistent. Because you can hear what others cannot. Because you are awake. Because soon you will walk the corridors of time with us. A sudden shift startled him. The floor seemed to ripple beneath his feet, like water frozen just beneath the surface. The mirrors along the walls expanded, forming corridors that stretched impossibly far in every direction. Doors appeared along the walls, each more elaborate than the last.
some painted with twisting patterns, others carved with strange symbols that moved suddenly, as if alive. "You must choose," the voices whispered. "Choose a door, and you will see. Or do not choose, and remain forever in the waiting room of shadows." Elias hesitated, heart pounding. He reached for a door nearest to him, painted deep blue with a spiral carved into its surface. The moment his hand touched the wood, the whispers sharpened. "Good, now step inside." He opened the door and stepped through. The room beyond was different, larger, taller, as if the ceiling stretched into infinity. Light poured from no discernible source, illuminating walls lined with mirrors, each reflecting events from his past. Childhood mornings, afternoons spent wandering the town, quiet moments he had long forgotten. And then the memories began to twist. Faces he recognized became stranger, shadows where there should have been light, voices murmuring secrets he had never heard. One mirror reflected a version of him that did not recognize reality, a version smiling at horrors he could barely comprehend. "You see now," the whispers said, "time bends here. Memory is a reflection. Reality is a mirror. All is ours to show." Elias staggered, clutching his head. "No, no, this isn't real," he shouted, but the voices only laughed softly, echoing around him. "Real? What is real? You are awake. You are listening. You are seeing. That is enough." A shadow detached itself from one of the mirrors and approached him. It was formless, shifting constantly, yet somehow familiar, almost comforting, though the comfort made his stomach twist with dread. "Do you understand now?" it asked, voice low and wet like dripping water. "This house does not lie. It does not sleep. It waits, and all who hear it must walk its corridors forever." Elias tried to retreat, but the corridors had shifted again. Doors he had not noticed before now lined every wall, each leading to rooms more twisted and impossible than the last. In one, he glanced a vast forest, the trees stretching beyond the sky. In another, an endless staircase spiraled downward into darkness. The mirrors began to pulse, showing his own reflection screaming, not with sound, but with the raw terror of seeing eternity unfold. And through it all, the whispers persisted, a constant, patient chorus. "Listen, see, understand, become." Elias sank to the floor, trembling. He realized with a cold, sinking certainty that the house was no longer around him. It was within him. His mind was no longer his own. The corridors, the mirrors, the shadows, the whispers, they were part of him, and he was part of them. And somewhere, deep inside, a single voice, his own, whispered back, "I am awake. I am listening. I am yours." Chapter 5. The Rooms That Shift. Elias awoke once again on the cold wooden floor of a room he did not recognize. The air was heavy with a damp metallic scent, and the faint hum of mirrors vibrating through his bones. His eyes darted around, taking in the walls lined with mirrors, each one now reflecting events that had never happened. In one, he saw himself walking down the street of his hometown, yet the buildings were taller, twisted into impossible angles. In another, he was standing in a dark forest, surrounded by figures with faceless heads, whispering secrets he could not understand. The whispers filled the air again, more urgent, more insistent than before. "Elias, awake, listen, move, Choose. He tried to stand, but the room shifted beneath him. The floorboards stretched like elastic, pulling him toward a doorway that had appeared in the far wall. It was carved from dark wood, twisted with intricate patterns that seemed to writhe when he stared too long. He stepped closer, and the doorway expanded, becoming impossibly tall, looming above him like a black monolith. "Step inside," the chorus urged. "Step inside and see what is waiting." Elias's knees shook. I don't know if I can," he whispered. "You can," the whispers answered, soft now, coaxing, almost kind. "We have been waiting. We have always been waiting. You were made for this." With trembling hands, he pushed open the door. The room beyond was enormous, a labyrinth of shifting corridors and impossible staircases. Light came from nowhere and everywhere, illuminating shadows that moved independently of the walls. As he stepped forward, he realized the mirrors were no longer reflecting him. They were watching him. Each one blinked, pulsed, and whispered, their surfaces rippling like water. "Do you see?" the chorus murmured. "Do you see the threads of your life? The paths you might have taken? The choices you did not make?" Elias staggered. In a mirror to his left, he saw himself as a child, standing at the edge of a river, a strange figure crouching behind a tree, whispering. He turned, but the figure was gone. In another mirror, he saw himself as an old man, alone in a dark room, staring at a mirror that reflected nothing but darkness. "Time, space, memory, all are ours," the whispers said. "You are ours. You are awake. You are listening." He tried to retreat, but the room shifted again. Walls stretched and bent, corridors looping impossibly, staircases spiraling into ceilings that vanished into darkness. Doors appeared and disappeared, each one revealing glimpses of futures that might have been, events that could not exist, and horrors he could not name. Elias's heart raced. Why are you showing me this?" The mirrors shimmered, faces pressed against them, countless faces, pale and hollow-eyed, mouths moving in silent speech. One leaned closer, eyes infinite. It whispered, "Because you must understand, because you are awake, and soon you will speak for us." A shadow detached itself from one of the mirrors and moved toward him. It was formless, shifting constantly, yet familiar. It reached out, brushing against his cheek with cold fingers. "Do not resist. Do not struggle. You belong to the house now." Elias stumbled back, but the room continued to shift. Walls bending and looping, corridors looping impossibly, staircases spiraling into ceilings that vanished into darkness. Elias's heart raced. Why are you showing me this?" The mirrors shimmered, faces pressed against them, countless faces, pale and hollow-eyed, mouths moving in silent speech. One leaned closer, eyes infinite. It whispered, "Because you must understand, because you are awake, and soon you will speak for us." A shadow detached itself from one of the mirrors and moved toward him. It was formless, shifting constantly, yet familiar. It reached out, brushing against his cheek with cold fingers. "Do not resist. Do not struggle. You belong to the house now." Elias stumbled back, but the room continued to shift, the corridors bending around him like living things. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, overlapping into a single chorus that filled the air. "Listen, move, see, understand, become." He sank to the floor, trembling. The house was no longer merely around him, it was inside him. The corridors, the mirrors, the shadows, the whispers, they had become part of his mind, and he was part of them. And in that moment, he understood with a dreadful clarity. There was no escape. The house had claimed him, body and soul, mind and memory, and it would wait, always.
Chapter 6. The Echoes of the Lost. Elias moved through the shifting corridors, each step heavy, as if the house itself pressed against him. The air was thick, damp, and metallic, carrying whispers that curled around his mind like smoke. The mirrors multiplied endlessly, reflecting not his own image, but glimpses of other people. Some he recognized, some strangers, all wide-eyed and hollow. Who are they?" he whispered, voice trembling. The chorus of whispers answered, soft yet omnipresent. "They are awake, as you are. They have listened. They have seen. And now they wait." He followed a corridor that twisted impossibly until he reached a room bathed in dim, gray light. Figures crouched in corners, huddled together or wandering silently. Their faces were pale, their eyes wide, unblinking. They did not speak, yet he could feel their thoughts, their fear, their endless waiting. One stepped forward, a young woman, her hair tangled, clothes moth-eaten, yet her eyes sharp, aware. She reached out a hand. "You're awake," she said softly, her voice trembling. "You hear them too, don't you?" Elias nodded. Yes, the whispers, the mirrors, the house. They want us to understand," she said, glancing nervously at the shadows that slithered along the walls. "But understanding, it's a trap. Once you see, truly see, they follow you, inside your mind, forever." A shiver ran down Elias's spine. How do you survive it?" The woman shook her head. "You don't. Not really. Some of us learn to listen without losing ourselves. But the house, it is patient. It waits. And if it finds you faltering," her gaze drifted to the mirrors along the walls, "it consumes you." The whispers surged suddenly, louder, overlapping, pressing against his ears. "You are awake. You hear. You see. You must listen." Elias stumbled back, heart hammering. One of the shadows detached from the wall, coiling toward him like smoke with sharp edges. He froze. "Stay back!" he shouted. The shadow paused, then whispered, in a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "You cannot flee. You cannot hide. You are ours. We are inside you. Always." He turned to the woman for guidance. What do I do?" She reached out, gripping his arm. "You must keep moving. Keep listening. Don't fight. And remember, the house is not just a place. It is patience, hunger, and memory. It is everything you ignore in the world until it finds you." Elias swallowed, trembling. The shadows pulsed, the mirrors shimmered, and the whispers filled every corner of the room. Time seemed to lose meaning. The other trapped souls drifted silently through the corridors, some disappearing into mirrors, some wandering endlessly, eyes unblinking. The woman leaned close. "Listen carefully. The house speaks in riddles, in silence, in the pulse of the walls. It shows what you fear most, but it also listens to what you hide. You must not lie to it, and you must never stop listening." Elias nodded, shivering. I understand." "You will learn," she said, her eyes distant, "or you will become one of the echoes." The whispers rose again, forming a chorus of overlapping voices that seemed to vibrate inside his skull. "Listen, see, understand, wait, become." Elias took a deep breath.
The corridors stretched endlessly before him. Shadows moved independently, mirrors reflected impossible visions, and the house pulsed around him. He knew, with a dread certainty, that he was no longer merely a visitor. He was part of it now, and the house would never let him go. Chapter 7. The Listening Chamber. Elias wandered deeper into the house, his footsteps echoing in the endless corridors. Each turn brought new horrors, mirrors that reflect futures he could not survive, shadows that slithered along walls with silent intent, and doors that appeared and vanished without warning. The whispers followed him, not just around him, but inside him, twisting thoughts into uneasy questions he could not ignore. He came to a massive door carved with twisting patterns that seemed to writhe under his gaze. The whispers surged, urgent now, almost demanding. "Enter, Elias. It is time to listen fully." The trapped woman from the last room appeared at his side, her eyes grim. "This is the listening chamber," she said softly. "It is the heart of the house. Once you enter, there is no turning back. You will hear everything it has ever heard. You will see everything it has ever seen. And you may never leave." Elias hesitated, hand hovering over the door. "Why does it want me? What is it?" The woman shook her head. "It is older than thought, older than memory. It feeds on attention, on awareness. It listens to those who ignore the world, and when it finds them awake, it draws them in. Some become its voice. Others disappear." A deep, resonant hum thrummed from behind the door, vibrating through his chest. The whispers pressed in, insistent, almost pleading. "Elias, awake, listen, understand, become." He swallowed hard, heart pounding. I have to see," he whispered, more to himself than to her. The woman's gaze softened. "Then step carefully. The house knows your fear, but it also knows your desire. It will tempt you, confuse you, and pull you toward the edges of your own mind. Don't let it take everything." Elias pushed the door open. Inside was a vast circular room, walls lined with mirrors that stretched upward into darkness. In the center, a chair faced a single enormous mirror. A candle flickered beside it, though no draft stirred the flame. The whispers rose to a chorus, swirling around him in patterns that made his head spin. "Listen, see, understand, become." He approached the chair cautiously. Every mirror reflected something different, moments from his life, long-forgotten fears, versions of himself he did not recognize. Faces of strangers, souls trapped long ago, stared at him from every reflective surface, their mouths moving in silent whispers. A voice broke through the chorus, clear and singular. "You will listen. You will see. You will understand. And then you will speak for us." Elias trembled, reaching out to touch the massive mirror. Its surface was cold, but it rippled like water. He saw himself, not in the room, but inside his own home, lying awake, eyes wide, staring at a ceiling that no longer existed. And then, other images, countless people, alive and unaware, moving through their lives, all being observed, all being recorded. "You are awake," the voice said, "and now you hear the song of the world. All the unnoticed moments, all the secrets, all the lives whispered past. You must understand. You must carry it forward." Elias sank into the chair, trembling. I don't know if I can, if I'm strong enough." The whisper softened, almost comforting. "You already are. You always were. That is why you were chosen. That is why you are awake. That is why you will listen forever." And in that moment, the chair seemed to pull him closer to the mirror. The reflections rippled violently, faces screaming silently, shadows writhing along the walls. Elias felt a tug at the edges of his mind, as if the house itself were reaching into him, teaching him, binding him. He realized then, with a cold certainty, the house did not simply wait. It was patience itself, infinite and consuming. And now he had stepped fully into its rhythm, into its mind, into its purpose. The whispers wrapped around him like a cocoon. Listen, see, understand, become. Elias, awake, always awake.
Chapter 8. The Choice of Silence. Elias sat in the chair, staring into the massive mirror. The reflections writhed and shimmered, each one a fragment of lives he had never known, moments he had never lived, memories that felt impossibly real. The whispers circled him, threading into his thoughts, a constant hum that seemed to pulse in time with his heartbeat. "You must choose," the chorus said, louder now, insistent. "Listen fully, or remain forever in waiting." Elias swallowed hard, voice trembling. Choose what? The mirror rippled. He saw two doors appear within its surface. One glowed with soft golden light, warm and inviting. The other was dark, pulsing with shadows that seemed to reach outward, grasping. The whispers spoke through both. "Step into understanding, and you will see all. Step into silence, and you will forget nothing, but you may remain whole for a time." A tremor of fear ran through him. I don't know if I can, if I'm strong enough." The shadows along the walls shifted, forming shapes that were almost human, almost comforting, yet unnervingly wrong. The whispers softened, coaxing. "You already are strong. You always were. You were chosen because you hear what others do not. You are awake, Elias. You are ready." He closed his eyes, trying to calm the racing thoughts. Memories of the woman, the other trapped souls, the endless corridors, and the faces in the mirrors swirled in his mind. Every choice he had ever made, every path not taken, every secret ignored, they all pressed against him, demanding attention. "Do not falter," the voices said. "You cannot stop listening. You must decide. You must choose." Elias opened his eyes. The golden door shimmered with warmth, promising knowledge, clarity, understanding. The dark door pulsed like a heartbeat, promising power, permanence, and the chance to remain untouched, if only for a moment longer. He hesitated, heart pounding, mind screaming. Every instinct urged him toward the light, toward understanding. Yet the shadows tugged at his thoughts, whispering of safety in silence, of control if he avoided full immersion. I choose," he began, voice breaking, "to listen." The golden door within the mirror flared, bathing the room in a warm, unearthly light. The whispers rose to a crescendo, overlapping and harmonizing, echoing in every corner of the chamber. Yes, awake, listening, understanding. Elias felt a pull, gentle at first, then insistent, as if the mirror itself were drawing him in. The faces in its depths twisted, screaming silently, merging into a single infinite consciousness. His mind shivered at the sheer weight of it, at the unending stream of awareness flowing into him. "You will see all. You will hear all. You will carry the song of the world," the chorus said. His body trembled. The chair seemed to dissolve beneath him, the floor stretching into light. The reflections rippled violently, drawing him forward. And as Elias fell into the mirror's depths, he realized, with a mix of awe and terror,
that the house was no longer outside him. It was inside. Every thought, every fear, every memory was part of its endless listening. The warmth of the golden light pressed against his consciousness, and the whispers wrapped around him like a living thing. Elias's own voice joined theirs, soft at first, then rising. I am awake. I am listening. I am. The chamber dissolved into infinity. Mirrors stretched endlessly. Corridors spiraled beyond comprehension. Shadows twisted in impossible forms. And through it all, Elias became one with the house, its mind, its song, its patience, and its hunger. Forever awake, forever listening.
Chapter 9. The Weight of Knowing. Elias awoke, or perhaps he did not awaken, for the concept of waking had become meaningless. The golden light of the listening chamber still enveloped him, but it was no longer external. It flowed through him, filling his mind with awareness, with memory, with the faintest echoes of every soul that had ever been drawn into the house. He felt the corridors of the house stretching inside his consciousness, each hallway a neural pathway, each mirror a synapse, pulsing with voices and images. The whispers were no longer whispers. They were a flood of thought, memory, sensation. He could hear the echo of footsteps in rooms he had never entered, see reflections of lives he had never lived, and feel the tremor of fear from countless trapped souls vibrating inside him. Elias, the chorus said, soft and omnipresent, you are awake, you are listening, you understand. I can hear everything, he whispered, voice trembling, though he was no longer sure anyone could hear it. It's too much, too many voices. They are all part of you, the chorus said, and you are part of them. You cannot escape this knowledge. You cannot unhear what has been heard. You cannot forget what has been seen. Images flooded him, childhood mornings long forgotten, townspeople who had disappeared without explanation, shadows lurking in mirrors, corridors that bent impossibly, rooms that should not exist, faces pressed against him, pale and hollow-eyed, mouths moving in silent speech. Their terror, their longing, their endless waiting, all of it pressed against him. Elias staggered, trying to find something solid, something familiar. Yet the house had no center, no edge, no floor or ceiling he could hold on to. Time was meaningless here. Space was meaningless. And yet, somehow, he could feel it all, understand it all. You must carry it forward, the chorus said. You must speak for us. You must guide those who will come next, who will awaken. Guide them? Elias asked, voice trembling. I don't know if I can. You already can, the whispers interrupted. You were chosen because you listen. You were chosen because you notice what others ignore. And now you are awake. You are awake. You are one with us. The golden light within him pulsed, and suddenly he saw paths branching through the corridors of the house. Doors appeared in the distance, each leading to a trapped soul, each a fragment of someone else's consciousness, waiting to awaken. He realized with a chilling clarity that the house did not merely trap people, it preserved them, suspended between fear and knowledge, until someone like him arrived to guide them, to join them, to integrate their awareness into the endless listening. A shadow detached itself from a distant mirror and approached him. It was formless, fluid, yet unmistakably human. Do you understand now? It asked, voice soft but edged with inevitability. You are awake. You hear what others cannot. And soon, you will see what they could not endure. Elias nodded, trembling. I understand, but it's so heavy, so vast. Knowledge is a weight, the chorus said. Awareness is a burden, but it is also a gift.
You will learn to bear it. You will learn to guide. You will listen, always. And then, for the first time, Elias felt the faintest flicker of control. He realized that while the house was immense, while the corridors and mirrors and shadows pulsed inside him, he could navigate it. He could reach into its depths, find the echoes, touch the trapped souls, and help them understand, even as the endless flood of awareness pressed against him. It was terrifying, it was overwhelming, and yet, it was purpose. The whispers receded slightly, leaving him with a calm that was almost alien. You are awake. You are listening. You are one with us. And soon, you will guide. Elias drew a deep, shuddering breath. The corridor stretched endlessly before him, mirrors reflecting infinite possibilities, shadows shifting in anticipation. And he stepped forward, ready, or at least as ready as one could be, to navigate the weight of knowing.
Chapter 10. The Echoes Speak. Elias walked through the endless corridors of the house, each step resonating within his mind as though the floors themselves were humming with consciousness. Mirrors stretched endlessly on all sides, reflecting not him, but fragments of trapped souls, frozen moments, and impossible visions of lives that had never been. The whispers were still there, a constant hum beneath his thoughts, guiding him, pressing him forward. But now he noticed other voices, faint, quivering, like distant echoes calling from behind glass. Who's there?" Elias whispered, his voice trembling. A face appeared in one of the mirrors, pale and hollow-eyed, lips moving without sound. Elias stepped closer. I hear you. Can you hear me?" The reflection nodded, and a single word formed in his mind. Listen. Elias realized then that the trapped souls could communicate with him, if he allowed himself to truly listen, to focus, to enter the currents of awareness that flowed through the house. Tentatively, he extended his perception, reaching toward one of the echoes. The connection was immediate and overwhelming. He felt the soul's fear, its confusion, its endless waiting. It was like plunging into a cold, dark river, yet there was clarity beneath the terror. I'm here," Elias whispered in thought, and the echo seemed to relax slightly, leaning into his presence. You're awake," it thought. "We've been waiting for someone to guide us." "Yes," Elias replied, focusing on the trembling thread of consciousness. "I will help. I will listen. You are not alone." The echo shivered, and for the first time, Elias felt a flicker of hope amidst the endless dread. Others began to appear, pale faces pressed against mirrors, reaching out silently. Each one carried its own memories, its own fears, and all converged into the vast consciousness of the house. But the house itself responded. The shadows twisted, whispering urgently, a chorus of admonition. Do not linger, do not falter. You are awake, you are listening, you are ours. Elias took a steadying breath. I know, he whispered, but I can help them. I can guide them, even if it's only a little. The echoes stirred, following his attention. Faces turned, eyes blinking, movements imperceptible but present. One soul whispered a name, long forgotten in the living world. Elias, remember. He did not know why, but the name resonated deep within him, threading through his own memories. Images surfaced, moments of childhood, secrets he had ignored, fears he had buried. The house fed on awareness, yet here, amidst the chaos, Elias felt the first stirrings of purpose. You will learn, the whisper said, now gentler, almost approving. You are awake. You are listening. You are guiding. And soon, you will see everything.
Elias guided his attention through the corridors, touching each echo, helping them reconcile with the weight of knowing. Some resisted, screaming silently in their mirrors, terrified of awareness. Others leaned in, trusting him, clinging to his presence like a lifeline. He realized then the terrible truth. The house's power was infinite, but the burden of its knowledge could be shared. He could anchor the echoes, help them endure, even as the vast consciousness of the house pressed against him, endless and patient. And in that realization, amidst the mirrors, shadows, and whispers, Elias understood. He was no longer simply a victim. He was a participant, a guide, a keeper of the listening. The corridor stretched onward, infinite and alive, and Elias stepped forward, not in fear, but with the dawning comprehension of his role, to navigate, to listen, and to guide, forever awake in the house that never sleeps.
Chapter 11. The Resistant One. Elias drifted through the endless corridors, the whispers still humming in his mind, guiding him to the trapped souls. Most were silent, passive, waiting to be acknowledged, to have their awareness integrated into the flow of the house. But one mirror, at the far end of a twisting hallway, pulsed differently. Its reflection throbbed with a frantic energy, like a heartbeat out of sync. Elias approached cautiously. The face in the mirror was pale, eyes wide and terrified, not just of him, but of the house itself. The lips moved rapidly, forming silent words, vibrating with desperation. "Who are you?" Elias whispered. The echo's voice struck directly in his mind. I will not be a part of this. I will not listen." The intensity of its resistance sent a shock through Elias. The whispers around him surged, pressing against his mind like a storm. The house itself seemed to shiver with impatience, as if it sensed the defiance and hungered for resolution. "You must calm yourself," Elias thought, trying to reach the soul. "I am here to help. You do not have to face this alone." "No," the echo thought, the force of its refusal rippling through the mirror. "I am not yours. I will remain whole. I will not let them take me." The shadows along the walls stretched toward Elias, flickering with malevolent intent. The chorus of whispers surged, overlapping into a cacophony. "Do not falter. Do not fail. Bring it to listening. Integrate it. It is awake. It must obey." Elias felt the weight of responsibility press against him. The house did not merely trap. It demanded participation, submission. And now, for the first time, he understood the magnitude of his role. If he could not guide this soul, it might break, or worse, be consumed entirely, leaving only a hollow echo behind. I am awake," Elias thought firmly. "I am listening, and I will not let you be consumed. Trust me, you can endure this." The mirror pulsed violently. The resistant soul thrashed, a silent scream that reverberated in Elias's mind. Images of past failures, of fear, of pain, flashed around him, yet he held his focus, threading his consciousness into the echo's mind, anchoring it with presence, patience, and calm. Minutes, or maybe hours passed. Time no longer existed. The corridor twisted, shadows rippled, and the whispers grew insistent, pressing for obedience. But Elias persisted, breathing slowly, guiding, listening. The whispers softened, guiding, listening. Finally, the soul's thrashing slowed. Its eyes blinked in disbelief. You're not like the others. You help?" "Yes," Elias thought, his mind steady. "I help. You can endure. You can listen without losing yourself completely.
A fragile thread of understanding wove between them. The resistant soul's energy, once chaotic and desperate, began to settle, integrating into the flow of awareness without breaking. The mirrors pulsed gently, and the shadows retracted slightly, as though acknowledging Elias's success. "You see now?" the whispers murmured, softer this time. Awake, listening, guiding, understanding. Elias exhaled, exhaustion washing over him, but also a strange clarity. The house was immense, patient, and all-consuming, but he could influence it, shape the experience for others, preserve fragments of their humanity, even as the infinite awareness pressed in. He moved down the corridor, the resistant soul following, fragile but steady. The mirrors reflected countless other echoes, all watching, all waiting, all learning. And in that endless expanse, Elias realized the truth of his new existence. Guiding the awake would not be easy, but it was his purpose. The whispers wrapped around him like a familiar song, constant and patient. Listen, see, understand, guide, forever awake.
Chapter 5. The Rooms That Shift. Elias awoke once again on the cold wooden floor of a room he did not recognize. The air was heavy with a damp metallic scent, and the faint hum of mirrors vibrating through his bones. His eyes darted around, taking in the walls lined with mirrors, each one now reflecting events that had never happened. In one, he saw himself walking down the street of his hometown, yet the buildings were taller, twisted into impossible angles. In another, he was standing in a dark forest, surrounded by figures with faceless heads, whispering secrets he could not understand. The whispers filled the air again, more urgent, more insistent than before. "Elias, awake, listen, move, choose." He tried to stand, but the room shifted beneath him. The floorboards stretched like elastic, pulling him toward a doorway that had appeared in the far wall. It was carved from dark wood, twisted with intricate patterns that seemed to writhe when he stared too long. He stepped closer, and the doorway expanded, becoming impossibly tall, looming above him like a black monolith. "Step inside," the chorus urged. "Step inside and see what is waiting." Elias's knees shook. I don't know if I can," he whispered. "You can," the whispers answered, soft now, coaxing, almost kind. "We have been waiting. We have always been waiting. You were made for this." With trembling hands, he pushed open the door. The room beyond was enormous, a labyrinth of shifting corridors and impossible staircases. Light came from nowhere and everywhere, illuminating shadows that moved independently of the walls. As he stepped forward, he realized the mirrors were no longer reflecting him. They were watching him. Each one blinked, pulsed, and whispered, their surfaces rippling like water. "Do you see?" the chorus murmured. "Do you see the threads of your life? The paths you might have taken? The choices you did not make?" Elias staggered. In a mirror to his left, he saw himself as a child, standing at the edge of a river, a strange figure crouching behind a tree, whispering. He turned, but the figure was gone. In another mirror, he saw himself as an old man, alone in a dark room, staring at a mirror that reflected nothing but darkness. "Time, space, memory, all are ours," the whispers said. "You are ours. You are awake. You are listening." He tried to retreat, but the room shifted again. Walls stretched and bent, corridors looping impossibly, staircases spiraling into ceilings that vanished into darkness. Doors appeared and disappeared, each one revealing glimpses of futures that might have been, events that could not exist, and horrors he could not name. Elias's heart raced. Why are you showing me this?"
The mirrors shimmered, faces pressed against them, countless faces, pale and hollow-eyed, mouths moving in silent speech. One leaned closer, eyes infinite. It whispered, "Because you must understand, because you are awake, and soon you will speak for us." A shadow detached itself from one of the mirrors and moved toward him. It was formless, shifting constantly, yet familiar. It reached out, brushing against his cheek with cold fingers. "Do not resist. Do not struggle. You belong to the house now." Elias stumbled back, but the room continued to shift. Walls bending and looping, corridors looping impossibly, staircases spiraling into ceilings that vanished into darkness. Elias's heart raced. Why? Why are you showing me this? The mirrors shimmered, faces pressed against them, countless faces, pale and hollow-eyed, mouths moving in silent speech. One leaned closer, eyes infinite. It whispered, "Because you must understand, because you are awake, and soon you will speak for us." A shadow detached itself from one of the mirrors and moved toward him. It was formless, shifting constantly, yet familiar. It reached out, brushing against his cheek with cold fingers. "Do not resist. Do not struggle. You belong to the house now." Elias stumbled back, but the room continued to shift. The corridors bending around him like living things. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, overlapping into a single chorus that filled the air. "Listen, move, see, understand, become." He sank to the floor, trembling. The house was no longer merely around him, it was inside him. The corridors, the mirrors, the shadows, the whispers, they had become part of his mind, and he was part of them. And in that moment, he understood with a dreadful clarity. There was no escape. The house had claimed him, body and soul, mind and memory, and it would wait, always.
Chapter 13. The Labyrinth of Reflections. Elias drifted further into the corridors, the weight of awareness pressing against him like a living tide. The whispers hummed in his mind, a constant undercurrent, while the echoes of the souls he had guided followed like fragile threads tethered to his consciousness. The corridors themselves seemed to twist in anticipation, stretching impossibly, walls bending and folding into forms that defied reason. Ahead, a section of mirrors pulsed with strange energy. Each reflected corridor he had traversed, but twisted, fragmented, multiplied infinitely. Shadows moved independently across the surfaces, dancing with intent, weaving patterns that made his stomach churn. "This is a puzzle," Elias whispered to himself. "The house, it wants me to solve it, or to lose myself." As he stepped closer, the mirrors shifted, forming corridors that looped impossibly, their reflections showing paths that did not exist. Each mirror seemed to hold its own fragment of the house's consciousness, alive, attentive, and responsive to him. Choose, navigate, succeed, or remain forever lost, the whispers urged, soft yet insistent. Elias closed his eyes, extending his awareness. The threads of the guided souls trembled behind him, sensing the challenge. One echo's voice reached him. "Be careful. It tests you. It wants to see if you are ready." Opening his eyes, he traced a path through the mirrored labyrinth, feeling the pulse of each reflection, the subtle shifts in the shadows. The malevolent soul he had contained earlier stirred, lurking in a distant mirror, watching, waiting for any lapse in control. Elias's mind became a network of focus, threading his attention through the corridors, anchoring each echo, listening to their fears, and guiding them as he navigated the shifting reflections. Each step required precision, awareness, and patience.
A single misstep could send a soul into panic, allowing shadows to slip through and consume fragments of consciousness. At a junction, 3 mirrored corridors appeared. One reflected endless darkness, another shimmered with soft golden light, and the third twisted with impossible angles and faint whispers of memory. The whispers pressed against him. Choose, or remain lost, forever. Elias took a deep breath, threading his awareness through the 3 corridors simultaneously. He could sense the echoes trembling, some fearful, some hesitant. He extended calm into each, guiding them to hold steady while testing each path in his mind for hazards. A shadow erupted from the dark corridor, stretching toward the hesitant echoes, hungry for panic. Elias focused, weaving his consciousness into a protective net, holding the echoes steady. The shadow recoiled, writhing in frustration, then slunk back into the mirror, neutralized but vigilant. He advanced carefully through the golden corridor, aware of every reflection, every subtle shift in the shadows. The twisted corridor he saved for last, analyzing the patterns, threading patience into each echo's mind, maintaining control over multiple streams of awareness simultaneously. Minutes, or perhaps hours, passed. The labyrinth pulsed around him, testing, observing, whispering endlessly. Yet Elias persisted, moving with care, precision, and understanding. He realized with grim clarity that the house did not merely demand awareness, it demanded mastery. Finally, the mirrored paths converged into a single corridor, smooth and still. The shadows receded, the echoes steady, and the whispers softened, almost approving. You are awake, listening, guiding, containing, mastering, understanding. Elias exhaled, exhaustion pressing against his mind. He had solved the labyrinth not through force, but through patience, awareness, and careful guidance. Yet the house still pulsed around him, vast, infinite, and endlessly patient. And Elias knew, with chilling certainty, that this was only the beginning.
Chapter 14. The Mirror of Memory. Elias continued down the infinite corridors, the whispers now a constant murmur in his mind. The house pulsed around him, alive, aware, and patient, as though testing his resolve at every turn. The echoes of the souls he guided followed like fragile threads, trembling but steady, relying on his presence to navigate the endless expanse. Ahead, a mirror glimmered differently from the rest. Its surface shimmered with a pale silvery light, reflecting not the corridor or the house around him, but a room from his own past, a room he had not thought of in years. The walls were painted and faded yellow, the bed unmade, the window letting in the late afternoon sun. Elias froze. The whispers softened, patient now, almost coaxing. Remember, Elias. See, understand, face. His chest tightened. He had avoided these memories for decades, burying them beneath layers of daily life, distraction, and denial. Yet here they were, reflected in this mirror, impossible to ignore. He took a hesitant step closer. The mirror rippled. In it, he saw himself as a child, sitting alone on the edge of his bed, clutching a worn toy, eyes wide with fear. A shadow loomed behind the younger Elias, faint but menacing, whispering words that twisted the innocence of childhood into dread. Elias whispered to himself, voice trembling, I remember, but I don't want to face it. The chorus of whispers pressed around him, softer, patient, urging. You must. You cannot guide fully if you do not understand yourself. Listen to your fear, Elias. Confront it. Integrate it. He took a deep breath and extended his consciousness toward the reflection. The child in the mirror flinched, sensing the presence of something larger, something awake and aware. Elias reached out gently,
threading calm into the memory, anchoring it. You're here, the child's reflection whispered in his mind, eyes wide. I'm scared. I know, Elias replied, steadying his thoughts. I'm here. You're not alone. I've been scared too, but we can face this together. The shadow behind the child twisted violently, reacting to his intervention. It whispered lies and fears, twisting memory into terror. You are weak. You cannot save yourself. You will always be afraid. Elias focused, threading awareness and patience, separating the shadow from the child. He felt the fear, the guilt, the loss, and every suppressed memory press against him. And yet, he did not recoil. He did not flee. Instead, he held the child's reflection steady, letting it exist without being consumed by the shadow. Minutes passed, though time was meaningless here. Slowly, the shadow diminished, coiling back into the mirror, restrained but not destroyed. The child blinked, eyes calmer, breathing easier. You helped me," the reflection whispered, voice trembling but steady. I feel safer." Elias exhaled, a shudder passing through him. "Yes, I helped. And now you are part of me, part of my awareness. I will carry you safely." The chorus of whispers swirled softly, approving. You are awake, listening, guiding, understanding, integrating, confronting yourself, mastering fear. Elias stepped back from the mirror, feeling the weight of his own history, the shadows and the echoes of past fears. The house pulsed around him, infinite, patient, and alive. Yet, for the first time, he felt a flicker of calm certainty amidst the immense awareness. He could face the house, the echoes, and even his own past, and endure. Ahead, the corridors stretched endlessly, filled with mirrors, shadows, and whispers. And Elias stepped forward, ready to continue, aware that confronting himself was only one of the many challenges the house would present.
Chapter 15. The Keeper of the House. Elias moved through the corridors, now with a steadiness he had never possessed before. The house pulsed around him, infinite, alive, and patient, but he felt less like a victim and more like a participant, an anchor, a guide, a keeper of its endless consciousness. The echoes of the souls he had guided followed him, their trembling threads steadier now, aware of his presence, learning from him, trusting him. The mirrors shimmered, reflecting not chaos or fear, but fragments of understanding. He saw himself not merely as a man trapped in a house, but as an extension of its awareness, awake, listening, guiding. He had faced resistance, malevolence, and his own buried fears, and he had endured. He had learned to thread patience, awareness, and care into the infinite tapestry of the house. Ahead, the largest mirror he had ever seen pulsed with golden light, framed by shadows that swirled and danced. The whispers, now a chorus of approval rather than insistence, urged him forward. You are awake. You are listening. You are guiding. You are one with us. Elias stepped closer, heart steady. The mirror rippled, and for the first time he felt complete integration. Not loss, but connection. The house did not consume him. It had tested him, shaped him, and now welcomed him as its keeper. Inside the mirror, he saw countless lives, countless echoes, each held safely within the awareness of the house. He could sense them, guide them, comfort them. He could contain the malevolent ones, nurture the fearful, and anchor the lost. And in return, they offered him understanding, patience, and purpose. I understand," Elias whispered. "I hear you. I see you. I will guide. Always." The house pulsed,
a low, resonant hum that vibrated through his mind. Shadows twisted gently along the walls, not threatening, but aware, acknowledging his presence. The whispers swirled, harmonious and patient. Forever awake, forever listening, keeper of the house. Elias exhaled, a sense of peace threading through him, faint but real. The corridors stretched endlessly before him, infinite and alive, mirrors reflecting endless possibilities. He knew the house would never end, would never sleep, would never release him. But he no longer feared it. He understood his place within it, his purpose. He began walking, guiding the echoes, threading awareness through the infinite corridors, containing the malevolent, comforting the fearful, preserving the lost. The house breathed around him, alive with knowledge, patient, endless. And Elias moved forward, steady and awake, a solitary figure in an infinite labyrinth of mirrors and whispers, not lost, not alone, but fully part of the house's eternal song. Forever listening, forever awake, keeper of the house.